let's get started. So, I hope everybody's well. We're practicing social distancing here. And this study is really practicing it because there's hardly anybody here. We've got 2, 4, 6, we've got 8 people besides myself here. That's not a lot. So, anyway, let's pick up where we left off last week. We, hey Charlotte, how are you, honey?
Charlie.
Last week I gave you homework to do. Your homework was to write down what you think and believe about God. Did anybody do that? Not a one.
Why?
Terrible.
I mean,
I think sponsors
I
had done
just-
my homework for a couple weeks.
I just did mine in the last 5 minutes we were sitting here.
Okay. So, here's the thing, right? It's kind of like, I don't know, what's a good analogy? You go to a buffet, and they have lobster, filet mignon, you know, duck, all that good stuff, and you're over there in the corner with the peanuts, putting peanuts on your plate, a couple of grapes. It doesn't make sense, does it? It's like buying a new suit, putting it on without taking a shower. You may look good on the outside, but you still stink. You know, so coming into recovery and not working steps, it makes absolutely no sense at all. So if you're giving up of your time to be here for this thing, to learn stuff, you got to do the work. It's just like anything else. So Jill did. Hi, Jill. That's good that you're not here. So it's hard for you to share that. So the idea then is the foundation of this program was we spent weeks and weeks and weeks on step 1 and weeks on step 2. And we're laying the foundation, a good strong foundation for the rest of these steps for us to walk. You got to understand what this second step is about. And you can't, and I've said this to you numerous times already, you can't take the third step. You can't take the third step unless you've got a decent foundation in step 2. If you don't have any understanding of a God, you can't do the third step. You just can't do it. Because the third step is asking you to turn your will and your life over to the care of God. And so what is it that you understand about God? If you have a fearful, if you think God's going to punish you or judge you and that kind of stuff, it would be impossible for you to turn your will and your life over to that kind of a higher power. So what we have to do here in the second step is we have to take a look at what we think and believe about God. Hi guys. We have to look at what we think and believe about God. And that's so important. And that's why in the big book it says we're going to talk about God. In this second step, it says we're going to talk about God. You know, some people say, oh, I used to say, I didn't get sober to find God. I didn't come into recovery to find God. I just wanted to get this 2,000-pound gorilla off my back. When you start talking about God, you turn me off. But the book says we're going to talk about God because you have to have some type of relationship with a God. The relationship that you have to have with the God is you have to be comfortable. If you're not comfortable with a higher power, there's no way you can do the third step. Now, most of the people, when I say most of the people, there's people who have been sober a long time. There's people that have been sober. Hey.
Hey.
There's people that have been sober, you know, a couple of years or so, and they went in, they're maybe done all 12 steps, and they really skimped on this step. What is that you're carrying there?
Oh, dear God. Oh, God.
No, not God.
Wipes. And,
God's carrying you. What are you carrying? Oh, I think you had a dog or something there.
Did you like a...
All right.
Oh, no. Of my...
Okay. All right. So we're talking about, did you happen to do your homework?
Absolutely.
Thank you. You redeemed
Hey
us.
Nick, how you doing, pal?
Nobody else did.
All
I
right.
didn't know what my homework was.
Oh, to write down what we think and believe about God.
You were supposed to call me.
Okay, so anyway, I'm preaching to you about the importance of doing this work. I'm here, and I make the effort to come here, and you guys make the effort to come here, and I appreciate that. And I'm not here to pick on you or to knock you down, but it just doesn't make sense to me that you don't do the homework. Because, I have to ask myself, why are you here? Are you here? You're here to get a better understanding of the big book and the steps? That's what I'm assuming, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that why you're here? So you can learn how to work it from the directions that are in the book, what the book says, right? So if that's why you're here, then just listening and talking about it is not going to help. You have to do the work, okay? So here's where we're going to go with that. If you would have done the work, you would have had a list. And again, when we do a list here in recovery, we do shopping list. Like I said, when you go shopping, you make a list on eggs, milk, bread. You don't put down on your list eggs because when I get up in the morning, we don't need no great explanations. We need, bullet points. That's the kind of list we want to make. So when I ask you to make a list about what you think and believe about God, we need to look at that list, okay? And we're going to move on, so you can go back and do it when you get the chance. But we're going to look at that list, okay? You're going to share that list with your sponsor. You can share it in here with us. And we want to press, change, and rearrange. So whatever your list says, we want to remove the negative things from that list. So for those of you that are watching that have done the homework, because a couple of you have said you did, and I believe you. So what we want to do with that list that you have, we want to press, change, and rearrange that list. We want to remove anything negative that you have on that list. So if you think and believe, if one of the things you think and believe about God is that He's judgmental, He's going to judge you, He's going to punish you, a lot of that comes from religion and stuff, So if that's what you think, anything negative, we want to take off. So what we're going to do is press, change, and rearrange that list and make a new list. That new list is going to contain two things that original list does not. The first thing it's going to contain is you're going to remove anything negative from that list. The second thing that we want to put on there is, hey, Kent. The second thing that we want to put on there is we want to put anything positive that you may like your God to be, but you really don't think or believe He is. And for an example, when I got sober and I did this, I wanted my God to have a sense of humor, and I didn't think He did. So I didn't put it on my list. There was nothing funny about where I was in life when I got here, right? So I didn't think my God had a sense of humor. But when they tell me that we can create our own God in here, that's what we do. Remember, we're not talking about religion. You remember when Ebby sat down with Bill at the kitchen table and he told Bill, choose your own conception of God? You remember that? We talked about that? Well, we said the most important thing about that message was Ebby was not carrying a religious message, because there's no religion on earth that says choose your own God. Every religion has this is God and the dogma of this is how you get to God. And in AA and CA, we don't do that. We say choose your own concept of God. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to create a God that we're comfortable with. Again, if you're not comfortable with God, you can't really do the third step. You can fake yourself out and think you've done it. But that's a mistake that's going to bite you in the ass 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. And you're going to wonder why you got loaded again. Because you never really did a second step. And because you never really did a second step, it was impossible to do a third step, though you thought you did. And if you didn't do a third step, you know what the third step is there for? It's to set you up to do a fourth step. To put you in the right frame to do a fourth step. So now you did a fourth step that really wasn't based on the third step, that wasn't based on the second step. Okay? So the importance of this list of what I think and believe about God is so important. And now we want to remove the things that are negative from that list. And then we want to add anything that I'd like my God to be that I don't necessarily think that He is. And now I have a new list, and this new list that I created is a list about a God that I like. A God that I created. Now, that's not presumptuous of me. God don't care how we get to Him. So now, if I have a God that now, here's the kicker. This new list, I really don't believe this new list. Because there's things in there that I can't get out of my... I took judgmental out. I took punishing out. But it's still in my head. Right? That's not on my list anymore. It's still in my head. And there's some things I added that I really didn't believe about God. So even though I have a new list, I really don't. Because I'm stuck. And what is the word that the book uses over and over again? Remember we talked about in here? The book uses the word prejudice. Over and over again. And every time we read the word prejudice in here, I said to you, your old thinking, if you remember right. That's your old thinking, right? And so the prejudice, your old thinking, that's really what we're stuck with, even though we have a list that would be nice. So now, how do we counter that? Well, I have the answer for that too. We're going to counter that by what I call the fake it till you make it prayer. The fake it till you make it prayer. And you may laugh and you may think it's silly, but I want to tell you, I've been sober a very long time, and I have never yet met anybody that I've shared this with, that I've worked with, that have used this prayer and it didn't work. Not one person ever yet. And I don't think you'd be the first. So if you honestly do this fake it till you make it prayer will work for you too. And here's what it is. And you could change the wording, it's not like written down anywhere, but what you're going to do what you want to do each morning, you want to have your list in front of you. And you want to start your day off by saying, God, even though I don't believe you are, and you read out loud everything on your list, and when you get to the end of it, you continue with the prayer and say, today I'm going to act as if. So the prayer is simple. God, even though I don't believe you are, and I read everything on my list, today I'm going to act as if. Now, if you have to start your day over in the middle of the day, it's very easy. There's a friend of mine in California, he's got the simplest way that he works with newcomers to start his day and end his day. He tells the people, just look up and say, whatever, and you started your day. And when you need to end your day, just look up and say, enough. Anybody could do that, right? So if you want to start your day, you look up. So in the middle of the day, if it's 1 o'clock and you're having a crazy day, all you got to do is look up and go, enough. Take a breath and look up and go, whatever, and you've just restarted your day. But when you restart your day, I want you to use your fake it till you make it prayer. So again, you're going to say, God, even though I don't believe you are, and read your list out loud, today I'm going to act as if. Does that make sense to you? Everybody with me?
Yep.
I'm going to tell you something. I 100% guarantee you that if you practice this, I can't tell you when, I can't tell you how long it'll take, but I only tell you this. Again, I have never met anybody yet, and I've worked with hundreds of people, and I've done workshops for thousands and thousands of people all over the world. We've got people all over the world watching us right now. And not one of them has ever this not worked for. It's that powerful. For me, what happened one day, I was doing the fake it till you make it prayer. And I said, God, even though I don't believe you are, and I started reading my list. Actually, I didn't even need to read my list anymore. I was doing it so often I had it memorized. And I got about a little bit into the list, and I said, wait a minute. I don't believe this. I don't not believe this anymore. I believe this. And that was a revelation for me, that it changed. You're practicing social distancing. Very good. We have 10 people now. Okay, so that's what you have to do. That's the work that you're going to have to take out of here and do on your own. You don't even need a sponsor for that. You don't need anybody for that. You make a list of what you think and believe about God. When you're done with that list, you remove the negative stuff. Then you add some stuff you'd like your God to be. And you now have a list that you can work with. And when you work with that list, you use the fake it till you make it prayer.
What was Earl's, what was that, enough or whatever?
Yeah, exactly.
But we didn't say in the morning what it is.
Whatever.
Oh, yeah, okay, I remember. I got a girl just right at that level.
Yeah, whatever. And when you end your day, thank you. I'm glad I saw you do that, otherwise what the hell did that get filled up?
I think I saw you.
God, prayer.
Hey, close Sweden or Amsterdam. Where are you at in Amsterdam? It's late for you, pal.
That's cool.
Okay, so that's what you need to do. And I'm going to tell you something. This may sound astonishing to you, but it will not work for you if you don't do it. If you don't actually put pen to paper and do it, and then press change and rearrange, and then talk to God with the fake it till you make it prayer, it will not work for you. So, like anything else, there's some work you have to do, okay? The only time success precedes work is in the dictionary. Now, I wrote on the board, hope is a good breakfast but a bad supper, and you asked what that was, because we're finishing the second step, we're getting into the third step, and the second step's about hope, it's about believing, right? But now I have to do more than believe. I have to start doing some stuff in order to get well. So we're at, anybody got any questions before we move on? No questions? Okay.
I kind of wrote, some, but there was really nothing negative on it about my concept of God. I mean, I feel like God is loving and forgiving. He's my best friend. He's always present.
Okay.
And I do believe that God is everything.
So here, two things. Some of you have been sober for a long time, and I don't expect you to have a bunch of negative stuff on there. I don't expect you to have any negative stuff on there if you've been sober for a while. Don't forget, there's people in this room, in this class, that have been sober for, James is watching, he's 42 or 43 years sober. So, you know, I don't expect James to have anything negative about God on there. But so that's one point. The other point is how you really living. What's really going on in your life? You know, if you believe that God, remember back in this step that we talked about a week or two ago, that it's asking us point blank a question in the big book. Is God everything or is he nothing? And it's asking us to make a choice. Is God everything or is God nothing? And everybody says God's everything. And when they tell me that, I said, well, why don't you live that way?
Yeah, that's right.
You know, it's easy to say God is everything because that's what we know is the correct answer. But if God is everything, then why are you living the way you're living? Why are you going through what you're going through? So when you make a list and you have nothing negative about God and you believe all this thing, then my question to you is then why are you going through, You know, why you're in the position you're in. And I don't know what position you're in. You might be in a good position, you know. And if you're sober and going through and been around, and you know, then you should be in a good position, you know.
Something that you said a while back that really stuck with me, and I say it all the time. If you know God, how did you say, if you know God, why, you have nothing to be afraid of. Or you said,
I'm not sure I said that.
but you said, if you know God, then there's nothing to fear or something like that.
Well, that would be true.
If you pray, why worry?
Because it was-
I said if you know your worth, then why do you?
I kind of, if you worry, why pray? If you pray, why worry?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Well, and I've heard that one, but she actually said, if you know God, what do you have to fear?
Yeah.
Kind of said it, and it just stuck with me.
Yeah. So,
It's tough.
but that's true though.
It is.
So, but here's the thing. If you're sober, right, and you just got sober, you've been sober a year, 2 years, 5 years, right? You know, you haven't really been sober a long time, 18 months, 3 months, whatever it is. You know, you may have a core foundation of a good belief about God, but what's been stopping you from living that way? And don't forget the title of the chapter is We Agnostics. Do you remember what the word agnostic means?
Yes.
Lack knowledge. That's right.
But it's still hard. I can't just float through every day, fear. I mean, I got to be brought back to that. And then I see the results later. I'm like, oh my God, why did I get so worked up? But it's,
Why did I worry at all?
yeah, but it is hard to not get into fear about stuff at times. And
Well,
I love the fear prayer. The fear
I
prayer works
think
for
what
me.
you're saying, we're going to find the answer to that in this next step coming up. Okay? I think we're definitely going to find, in your case, we're going to find, but the foundation of this is, again, if you're not comfortable with God, it is impossible to do a third step. I can't stress that enough to you. So you have to get a degree of comfortability with God. And that's what we're trying to do with this fake it till you make it. We're trying to get comfortable with God. And if you do this on a regular daily basis, 10 times a day, whatever it takes, there's going to come a time where you're going to start doing the fake it till you make it prayer. You're going to realize that's not true for you anymore. That you somehow the boat has appeared that we talked about. Somehow the invisible boat has appeared. Okay? So important. Okay? So it's so important to get some type of understanding of God. I'm not telling you need to understand God. I don't understand God. But I have an understanding of God that works well for me. And that's what I want you to get. I want you to be comfortable with God. Things don't go right in my life. And my God, this has been a horrible week for me. I was supposed to go to New York Tuesday. My brother's dying. They canceled all my flights. So I won't get my later. We did a conference call, my daughter, one of my daughters and two of my granddaughters have tested positive for this corona thing. They're all in New York. I rescued a dog and I had to get rid of him today because my dogs at home don't want him in the house. And I just almost cried giving this dog up today. I only had him for 2 days. Beautiful German Shepherd. But anyway, but none of this has got anything to do with God. Everything that I just shared with you has got to do about my relationship with God and what I think and believe about God. And when I don't lack the knowledge, when I have the knowledge, then I just have to act as if. Okay? And when I act as if, because I already know that God's running the show. There's no doubt in my mind. I never would have wound up in recovery if he wasn't. So God's running the show. I just have to act as if. when I don't believe that, when I want to run the show. And that's what we're going to get into when we get into the third step. Okay. Repeat the question, please, so we can hear. What question? I don't know what question you want me to repeat. So anyway, anybody else got a question on the second step? I'm sorry, Deb, I don't know what I said that you want me to repeat. Let's go to page 57, 58. Now this is where we left off, right? So the title of this chapter, so we just left a chapter that tells us we lack knowledge. And now it's going to tell you, if you're wondering how this program works, guess what? There's a chapter here that's titled How It Works. There's no great rocket science here. Okay? It doesn't say not how it happens or how it may be or what it could be like. This title says how it works. And it says, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. And remember I told you before that the only word that was changed in this first sentence, and everybody thinks it's rarely, and that's not correct. It always said rarely. The word that was changed in this sentence was path. It used to say directions. The original manuscript said directions. The first printing said path. So the message that I want you to understand is that this is really about a set of directions. Okay? Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program. So this second sentence is telling you who's going to get sober, who's not going to get sober, and why. Unfortunately, when we read how it works in a meeting, that's the time that we think about, what do I got to do when the meeting's over? What did I leave my light on at the house? Did I do it? And we start daydreaming, and we're not really paying attention to what the person that's reading how it works is saying. Now this is telling me who's going to get sober, who's not going to get sober, and why. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. I completely gave myself to that shit out there. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. Now, he uses this word honest a couple of times in this paragraph here. And don't get this confused. He's not talking about cash register honesty. He's not talking about, there's nowhere in the big book that Bill sets us up to fail. Quite the contrary. Everything in this book is very good. Whenever someone has a question, repeat it before you answer. Oh, okay, sorry, Deb. All right, I'm getting directions from them. All right, so there's nothing in here that sets us up to fail. So Bill's not talking about lying or not lying, okay? He's talking about incapable of being honest with themselves. Me being honest with myself, what happens to me when I drink? What happens to me when I do drugs? That's the honesty that I need to get in touch with. Otherwise, I know right from wrong. That's where I lie to myself. I tell myself, this time it'll be different. Nobody will know. I can get away with it. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. So it's not a manner of sobriety. It's a manner of living. A manner of living. I don't know about you guys, but I don't have a manner of living. It's not about a manner of drinking or not drinking, not about a manner of using or not using, it's about a manner of living. And I didn't have a manner of living that worked. Find out why coming up. He says their chances are less than average. There are those who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. So remember what we said here the first week or two is that naturally incapable of grasping and developing is that quote I gave you. Anybody remember that quote? That little quotation, huh?
I wasn't here last week.
No, not last week, the first week or two. I tell you what this is. I tell you it's twice in this book, and this is the first part. It's a math equation. Knowledge plus practice equals learning. Knowledge plus practice equals learning. Learning changes character. Character changes the way we live. Knowledge plus practice equals learning. Learning changes character. Character changes the way we live. This is the first time in this book that we come to that equation. Grasping and developing. Grasping is getting the knowledge, and developing is practicing it.
Can you run that back?
Knowledge plus practice equals learning. Just do it like a math problem. Knowledge plus practice equals learning. Learning changes character. Character changes the way we live. Because as we go through this book, and I will point it out to you, there are actual characteristic changes in myself. My very character changes as a result of this work. And we'll learn that as we go through. I will point them out to you, the very character changes that you will have as a result of this stuff. So, so knowledge plus practice equals learning. Learning changes character. Character changes the way we live. So unlike everything else in life, or mostly everything else in life, you don't learn by, well, it's not like everything else. There's things that are similar. Like, in other words, if I picked up a book about golfing, right? I'm not a golfer. So if I wanted to learn how to golf and I started reading about golfing, that's not going to do very much for me, right? Because, like the program, golfing is about action. As I practice golfing, I start learning, okay? And as I practice these principles, I start growing spiritually. So now there's people that have grave emotional mental disorders. We see them all around us. And many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Again, the honesty is about what happens to me when I drink. He says, our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. So now, how many times you've been in a meeting, you heard somebody say, this program is not for those that need it, this program is for those that want it. You've heard that before?
Yes.
That's bullshit. Don't believe that.
That work it, that's what I've heard. That do it.
Well, a lot of people will say this program is for those that want it. No, it's not. I know hundreds of people that want to get sober if they just didn't have to stop drinking and using. Right? So this program is not for those that need it. We don't have enough room for people that need it. It's not for those that want it. It's only for those that are willing to go to any length to get it. That's what the book says. Willing to go to any length to get it. Like, in other words, you have homework, you do it. That would be willing to go to any length. Anything less than that would be half-stepping. Half-stepping. Half measures availed us nothing. Have you heard that before?
What's it, my,
Half measures availed. Doesn't say you get half sober. There's no such thing as half sober. It's like half pregnant. There's no such thing. You're either pregnant or you're not. You're either sober or you're not. You don't get half sober here. So half measures availed us nothing. We're willing to go to any length to get it. You're ready to take certain steps. So if you're at that hopeless desperation where you have no fight left, then you may be ready to take certain steps. Okay? And then he says, there's some of these we balked. Of course we balked. Why do we balk?
scared?
Scared? We usually don't balk because we're scared, huh?
Don't know.
Just unsure.
Don't know?
Scared to change.
Not sure? Scared to change? No. We balk because it's not our way. We may balk because we're scared, we may balk because of change, we may balk because of, but we're really balking because it's not I didn't write the script for this one here. It's not
me.
I didn't write the lines here, I don't want to read somebody else's lines.
Yeah.
And you know why I balked? It tells me in the next sentence. I thought I could find an easier, softer way. I don't have to listen to what you guys are saying. I'll find an easier, softer way. I've been doing that my whole life. I don't know about you guys, but I almost killed myself trying to find an easier, softer way. But look what it says, the third sentence. But we could not. That sums it up. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Now this is a little archaic, for lack of a better word. It's a little old-fashioned. With all the earnestness at our command. If Bill wrote this in the year 2020, he'd say, about as honest as a fucking drunk like me could be, you better get busy, asshole. That's what that sentence says. If that makes more sense to you, then with all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. And people ask me all the time, when are you supposed to get busy working steps in recovery? That's a popular question. I do a lot of workshops around when I go all over the place. And one of the workshops I do is just questions and answers. I go for an hour and fucking 1,000 people and just do questions and answers about the book. And that's one of the biggest questions I got. And I always laugh because the book tells us. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. That's the answer to that question. When is the time to start doing stuff? With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Don't come in here and get comfortable and look for a sponsor and then, feel okay and then work steps. We don't feel okay and work steps. We work steps to feel okay. Does that make sense?
Not really.
Okay. Now, some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas. That's the prejudice again. Well, our old ideas is I got this list about the God that I really don't believe, but I want to believe. But my old ideas are making me not pay attention to this list. Even though I want to, my old ideas are so deeply embedded in me. He says some of us try to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. We're talking about unconditional surrender. Too many of you people come in here and you work with people who are negotiating the terms of your surrender. What the hell kind of shit is that? Negotiating the terms of your surrender. If we're at war and you're in the jungle and I surround you with my guys and you decide to throw your rifle down and put your arms up and surrender, you ain't got shit to tell me. You are my prisoner. You will do what I tell you to do. What's happened is, if you want to go, history is a great thing. You can learn from history. I'm going to give you a little history. In World War II, okay, the Germans refused to surrender. And if you look at history and see what happened to them, one of my uncles was in the invasion of Normandy, Point the Hook. Terrible thing. He was in the 1st Ranger Battalion, and almost all of his guys got killed, and he was wounded. But we lost thousands and thousands of troops on D-Day. But anyway, the Germans refused to surrender. And because they refused to surrender, we bombed the shit out of them. We destroyed them. We stomped the hell out of them. And Hitler wound up killing himself. And all the other generals, they wound up killing themselves. And we just destroyed them. And because they refused to surrender, for years, Germany was divided with the wall. One side communist, the other side a democracy. East and West Germany. Because they refused to surrender, so we made them what they were. us and the Russians. The Russians had East Germany, we had this side, West Germany. Now, same war. The Japanese, World War II. We dropped a couple of nukes on their ass and blew their cities apart. And on a battleship in the Pacific Ocean, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, they unconditionally surrendered to the United States and the armed forces. Unconditionally surrendered and put their sword down and put themselves at our mercy as prisoners. Unconditionally. And what happened to Japan after World War II? They became one of the strongest, most powerful, most economical nations in the world. Because once upon a time, they found it in themselves to unconditionally surrender. They gave up. Until you give up, unconditionally surrender. That's what it's saying here. It's saying, until we let go absolutely, the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Unconditional surrender. Until you unconditionally surrender, give up, and do what you're told. I don't really give a shit. Somebody that I'm working with, a newcomer, I don't really give a shit what they got to say. You could take their face and their name and put 10,000 other people in there. We're all the same. You know, got this problem, he's got that problem, it's all the same bullshit. The bottom line is, I swear I don't want to do it no more, and I keep doing it. I can't stop. Get rid of all the other bullshit. That's the bottom line. I swear I ain't going to do it again, and I'm doing it again. And I can't stop myself. So I don't really give a shit what you got to say. When I was in Florida, I looked up, when I first got down there, I looked up a meeting. And I saw in the book they had, oh, it's a newcomers meeting. So I went down there, I said, oh, I'll go to this newcomers meeting. And I went down there, and I tell you, I was shocked what they do there. In this part of Florida. And I got a lot of my Florida friends watching, and I love all you guys, you know. But that fucking meeting was insane. They had a beginners meeting. They had chairs set up in a long oval thing, and then chairs on the outside. And when I sat down there, and the guy says to me, "Are you a newcomer?" And I said, "No, I just moved there. Nobody knew me." And I said, "No." He said, "Oh, that's for the newcomers. You guys sit over there." I said, "Okay." So I got up and I moved to the outside ring. And all the newcomers, when the meeting started, they went around the tables there, and they let all the newcomers share for 3 to 5 minutes. And I says to the guy next to me, "The fuck are they sharing for?" He says, "What do you mean? That's what we do here. It's a newcomers meeting." I said, "There ain't a damn thing that," and we had 5 minutes left for people to share, and I shared. I said, "There ain't a damn thing that anybody shared tonight that's going to help any other one of you. What you need to hear is how we do it, how we stay sober. You need to shut up and listen, not to talk." 50 minutes of newcomers sharing. What can you possibly share about?
I'd kill myself.
What can you possibly share about? How great this program is?
Your day.
You don't know how great this program is. How good this program works? You don't know how this program works. You have no idea how this program works. What can you possibly share that's going to help the next guy or yourself? Nothing. So when I work with people, I don't give a shit what they got to say. Doesn't matter. Whatever their problems are, don't matter. Because if you don't address the alcoholism and the drug addiction, you ain't fixing nothing else. And that's what we're going to address. That's what we're going to fix. And then guess what happens? Everything else starts to change. All right. So he says, remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it's too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. So I think it's not by coincidence that this is right where it's at in the book, because we just finished, we agnostics, and we just kind of tried to frame a God that we're comfortable with. Because there's only one that has all power, and that one is God. May you find him now. And look what he says. Half measures avail us nothing. We already talked about that. We stood at the turning point. What is the turning point?
Got to do everything or he's nothing.
The turning point is, no, it's my hopeless desperation. I'm just, no matter what I'm working the steps on, I'm just hopeless about it. And I'm desperate about it. And I'm at a turning point. And I could keep fighting. I could keep trying to fit the square into the circle. I can keep trying to do it my way. I can try harder. I can try something different. Or I can fucking surrender unconditionally. I can honestly give up. I think I shared with you with my brother and those guys. That's my brother that's dying. Those other guys that was in my neighborhood that used to put me down and give me a pink belly. Remember I shared that with you? And they used to, every time I walked by them, they used to throw me down and pick my shirt up and give me a pink belly until I said uncle. And then they'd let me up. And then they'd let me up and I'd try to kick them in the balls and run. Because, you know why? Because I just said uncle so they would stop. I didn't really mean it. And I was 8, 10 years old, whatever I was. And it was all, even from way back then. I'm 62 years old now. I remember it was like yesterday. I didn't really mean it. And I spent the next 20 years not really meaning it. Whatever I said and did, I didn't really mean it. It was just to get what I wanted to get.
Someone once said that G-O-D, gift of desperation.
Gift of desperation. Group of drunks. Good orderly direction.
Good old dude.
Good old dude. There's lots of those things. Okay. So anyway, we stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. Now this is a sentence that people really twist and really mess up. They'll tell you, look, the steps are a set, the steps are suggested. They're only suggestions. Well, two things I have to say about that. It may be a suggestion, but guess what? It's the only suggestion we have. And it's the suggestion on the same magnitude that if I would suggest to you, if you're going to jump out of an airplane, you should put on a parachute. Now, you don't have to. It's only a suggestion.
I wonder why they put that in there.
That's the type of suggestion this is. But really, what he's really saying, he's not saying that the steps are a suggestion. He's saying the program of recovery. If you, look what he's saying here. Here are the steps we took. So we took these steps, which are suggested for a program of recovery. So the suggestion is if you want a program of recovery, then here's the steps you have to do. Does that make sense to you? He's not saying the steps are suggestions, do them or not. That's not what AA is about. We have a set of directions that are right here. These are not a set of suggestions, they're a set of directions. So, here are the steps we took which are suggested as a program of recovery. And you must take them before you can report on them. I want to say that.
Oh my God.
And what I mean by before you can report on them, before you pass them on to somebody else. You have to take them yourself. For instance, I'm not trying to harp on you on this thing, but for instance, if you want to take somebody through the 12 steps as we're learning it here, which is hopefully what you're going to do later, how can you? Because you didn't do the work yourself. How can you get to the second step and tell them what to do? And you didn't do it.
So are you saying that when people say they are bad suggestions, that they're kind of twisting when we talk about the steps, and you hear people say, well...
Okay, so look at this sentence, right? It says, here are the steps we took. That's a definitive thing, isn't it?
Yes.
There's no doubt about it that we took the steps. We didn't dilly-dally around them. It weren't suggested that we do them. Here are the steps that we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. So the suggestion is really the program of recovery, not the steps. So if you want a program of recovery, I suggest you try our program of recovery. And if you want to try our program of recovery, here's the 12 steps you got to do. It's not a suggestion.
I wish they'd have worded it.
You remember they changed that first sentence? Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our directions
To pass.
to path. They found it easier for people to, rather than saying directions, so. And Bill didn't like that, but he went along with it.
So the suggestion is,
The suggestion is that if you want a program of recovery, we have one. Now, our program of recovery requires you to do 12 steps. Our program of recovery is not a suggestion about steps. Because here are the steps we took. We did them. We completed them. That's what took means.
Let's put a period there. Here are the steps we took. Period. I just changed it.
No, which are suggested as a program of recovery. So, but again, the steps are not the suggestions. The program of recovery is the suggestion. Okay, we don't need to go through. So we did them. We suggest you do them if you want to recover. You don't have to do them, but if you do, then do them right away and completely give yourself to the process. Because that's everything we just read and how it works, what I just shared with you. I'll say that again. We did them. We suggest you do them. You don't have to do them, but if you do, then do them right away, fearless and thorough from the very start, and completely give yourself to the process. That's what how it works says to us. I just summed it up for you, okay? And as we go into page 60, after the 12th step, it says, many of us exclaim, what an order! I can't go through it. Why are we saying what is that?
it seems like a lot.
Well, what are we doing?
Being told what to do.
We're balking again. What an order! I can't go through with it. Why are we balking again? Because we want to do it our way. Many of us exclaim, what an order, I can't go through with it. Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. Now, don't use this as a cop-out. Don't exhibit your defects of character on us and then say, oh, sorry, we're not saints. Don't try that, okay? Because that's not what it's telling you. It's not here for a cop-out for you. Okay? The point is we're willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. A description of the alcoholic. Where is the description of the alcoholic?
Oh, right here.
Doctor's opinion. There is a solution. Bill's story, and there is a solution. Right? Doctor's opinion in chapters 1 and 2. Right? That's our description of the alcoholic. The chapter to the agnostic, obviously, chapter 3, we agnostics. And our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. Now, I ask people all the time, our personal adventures before and after means what? For you that haven't done this before. Our personal adventures before and after, what does that mean?
What we were like and what we're like now?
No? It's not, because that's when it says what we're like and what we're like now. Now it's saying see, look at this whole paragraph. Our description of the alcoholic. Doctor's opinion, chapters 1 and 2. The chapter to the agnostic, chapter 3. And our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. What personal adventure is before this page?
Everything, or like, I'm
No.
trying to log.
There's one personal adventure.
Before this page,
Yes.
right here, this is.
Bill's story. Bill's story is a personal adventure. And in more about alcoholism, there's some more personal adventures. There's the jaywalker, there's the guy who had the automobile place. And so those personal adventures. And now after this page, the whole back of the book is personal adventures. So he says our personal adventures before and after. He's talking about before here and after here. Because it tells us to read the whole book. There's this thing going around the rooms that the first 164 pages are important. No, it says read the book through and through. The whole book. Make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. That's step 1. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. Step 2. And C, that God could and would if he was sought. Also, step 2. Now, if you go to a treatment facility, they'll probably tell you that the 3 pertinent ideas, A, B, and C, are steps 1, 2, and 3. They are not. A is step 1, B and C is steps 2. How do I know that? How am I sure about that? Maybe Danny's just talking out of his ass.
Because it says being convinced, remember it says.
That's right. That's right. Being convinced, we were at step 3. So C can't be step 3 because I'm not at step 3 yet. So C has to be step 2. So when I share with you, I'm not just talking out of my ass. I'm sharing with you what the book says. The 3 pertinent ideas are steps 1, 2, and 2.
I love those.
And that's kind of where we're going to leave off tonight, because we're not going to actually get into step 3. And we'll do step 3 next week. So, anybody got any questions? We've got a few minutes. Any questions on what we went over? No questions? Going once? Going twice? So, that's it. See you guys next week, same time, same channel. Appreciate you.